Hi guys, welcome to the stream. Sorry for running a little bit late there. We, for want of a better word, we're ranting a little bit, basically off screen. So now we've decided to come on and start ranting again at the glorious film that was Madam Web. How did you find it? Did you have many people in your cinema? Should we start with that?
I had 10 people in my cinema.
Okay, I had 2, and I was one of them.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't really think it's going to blow the doors off the box office to start with, because a lot of the things I've seen is that most cinema screenings only have, on average, about 6 seats pre-sold. And I did check the this evening's, I think it's like a 6 o'clock showing at the local cinema, and it was 11 seats were pre-sold as of 2 this afternoon. So, yeah.
It's not looking good.
No. And they're doing their opening weekend figures from Wednesday, not the Thursday. So they're doing it from the Wednesday through to the Sunday, which is not really it's not really a weekend. It's a week, basically. It's 5 days.
Yeah, but even with those 5 days, it doesn't sound like they're going to make a huge impact.
No. Domestic box office is reckoned to be somewhere between 30 and 35. And a lot of the commentary is that's probably going to be a stretch.
After seeing the movie, I understand that.
I think it's going to do better internationally. But that's just because there's a lot more cinemas internationally than there is in the US. So, yeah, I mean, if you had to sum it up in one word.
Boring?
Shit.
That is one word.
Yeah, I had so many problems with the film. I was sat there basically taking notes on my phone while I was supposedly watching it. It was bad. But yeah, I mean, let's just get into this. Like, what were your thoughts?
Well, firstly, I was very annoyed with the camera work in this, and I was very annoyed with all the cuts, especially during action scenes. Let's take the opening, not the opening scene, but the first time we meet Madam Web in her 30s when she's driving the ambulance. It kept cutting as if there was like intense driving going on, but it was quite clear that the ambulance really wasn't driving that quickly, even though it was trying to get to the hospital. But there was so much traffic, which, to be honest, I would expect there to be in New York. So the cuts were supposed to make it feel like tense and thrilling, but it genuinely gave me a headache watching that scene, and it annoyed me because I've been in an ambulance, like going to the hospital in an emergency situation, and the person in the back and the driver weren't having this witty dialogue while the person in the back was taking care of me. And especially since Ben, who was giving CPR to the person in the back, really? You're going to quip to the person in the front? Like, I get there's meant to be levity in these movies, but honestly, they pick the worst possible times to actually put jokes in. It's like, if it's a serious situation, can we not keep it serious at least for a little bit? There's a person dying in the back of this ambulance, and you're going to make a joke like, oh, should I drive? It's like, come on. What are you going to do? Stop CPR while you swap seats? Oh, it just annoyed me. And that was, the first 10 minutes of the movie? And there was just more annoyance throughout, but I'll let you jump in for a little bit before I get carried away.
One thing I will say about that is he's giving CPR to someone who's basically heart stopped. He's got a defibrillator. Pretty sure defibrillators are designed to restart hearts. Like, you do CPR until the guy with the defibrillator gets there, and then you restart the heart. You don't keep doing CPR.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, with regards to the cuts, the only thing I would add is you're absolutely right. And then it cuts when she brakes because one of the spider girls basically runs out in front of the ambulance and then obviously sticks her finger up. But if they were actually moving at the speed that it felt like they were moving, she'd have been flattened. She'd be dead. So
Yeah.
they were probably doing 20 mile an hour. And the way they cut it was supposed to build suspense or something like that. And it was shocking.
Another
To be fair, that wasn't even one of the problems I've listed.
Yeah. Well, another thing I had with the action scenes is basically they seem to have this one transition, which was the spinning of the camera to make it seem like, oh, because it's a Spider-esque movie, and obviously spiders hang upside down and all that. And I was just like, is this the only transition we have in fights? Because it's just making it hard to follow the action. There was a lot of fighting where it was just like, okay, so what's actually happening right now? Who should I be following? Is the bad guy on the floor? Are the good guys on the floor? What's happening here? And I just felt the whole thing was the editing was not great for me. Like I say, it actually gave me a headache, and the transitions as well. I was just like, you're making it very unclear. Like I get you're trying to make this more intense and make it thematic, but if you take away the details, then I don't care about the situation. So
yeah, the pacing of the film was so weird. How can a film both feel like it is not long enough and also too long? Like it was bizarre. Like the point where you find out very quickly. Sorry, we're spoiling a lot. Not that there's anything that you would actually want to watch. There's a point in the film where basically right near the beginning, she's going to end up going back to Peru, but she doesn't go back to Peru until like 2/3 or 3/4 through the film, and then they push through the ending with very, very quickly. Like everything happens really, really condensed down, and it feels like that part should have been longer. But then it feels like everything that came before could have been significantly cut down. Like there was a lot of extraneous stuff going on that didn't really add anything to the story. Like you start with her, you made this point, you start with her mother and basically seeing what happened at the beginning. But then you see a bloody flashback of it, like when she goes back to Peru. Like that didn't need to be there in any way, shape, or form. And that would have cut probably about 6-7 minutes from the film, which would have been a blessing in disguise. Because
I think I agree, and I think it would have had more impact, like it did when she had the flashback, because she interacted with her mother in the past. So I think that, as you say, we didn't need the first bit in Peru. The whole thing could have just been her figuring out how to use her powers, and those would have taken her back to see her mother while she was pregnant. So could have been done in so many different ways.
Yeah. So I thought that the way the film was done was there were so many like oversights, so many issues, just basically from start to finish. Obviously, I don't want to spend all day basically ripping through everything that I noticed that was wrong with the film, but just a few things that basically I noted down. When her friend dies in the truck accident, the truck basically the ambulance looks like it's completely intact, and yet he's completely cabbaged and bleeding out, despite the fact that there's nowhere near enough damage for him to be bleeding through his chest, because she does CPR and then her hands are covered in blood. So it's like he's been impaled in an accident, but it was a side swipe, which didn't even seem to damage the ambulance at all. There's one of the biggest plot items that I saw that absolutely just like, nah, this is all just crap. The reason that the bad guy comes back is a paper in the diner, but they've been missing for 4 hours, and yet the front page is that they've been kidnapped on a daily paper that would have been released at the beginning of the day. And you sat there going, well, that would never have been printed within like 4 or 5 hours of these girls being kidnapped. Obviously, they weren't kidnapped, but it's like they needed a reason for them to be noticed. And they went, oh, well, let's do it on the front page of a paper, not even realizing that the length of time that had passed since the point where they've supposedly been kidnapped to now, it's not possible for the paper to actually be released with that fresh information in there and circulated. If they'd spent a day basically on the run before they got caught, it might have been plausible, but it lost all credibility. And it was literally there because they couldn't figure out how to move the story forward, basically within a condensed time frame. When basically she ropes Ben in to look after the kids, Ben doesn't question the fact that she's got the 3 missing kids with her in any way, shape, or form, which any normal person would. There's a point where they introduce the power statement, with great power comes, with great power comes great responsibility, but then they try to turn it on its head to make a different message, and it just seems confused. Like, it's just shit. And then we've got, like, the biggest problem of everything. They couldn't figure out when to set the film. They were originally setting it in 1993, and then some bright spark realized that actually it wouldn't fit into any of the Spider-Man universes that they've already done. So they then moved it forward 10 years to 2003. And then basically the whole premise of the story is that these 3 girls are going to turn into Spider-Girls and basically kill the guy, so he's trying to kill them before they can kill him. But the problem is that when they're talking, they're like, we don't know how far in the future it will be. So we've took these images that you've produced and we've de-aged them by 10 years. And they look identical to the 3 actresses as they are as teenagers. Now, the problem with that is that if you then imply that approximately they are going to be 10 years older when they're Spider-Girls, that means they're Spider-Girls in 2013, which is prior to Tom Holland's Peter Parker, who they basically made these changes to try to fit the universe together with Tom Holland's Peter Parker. Tom Holland, people would know that there were 3 other Spider-Girls at the same time that Spider-Man was basically the hero of New York. But there's no reference. And this is a problem when you take a film and then try to make it a prequel of another film which already exists, when there's clearly impact on the timeline of the films which already exist, but hasn't been mentioned because those films were made before this film was made. And you have this sort of like causality loop where Madam Web already exists, already has superheroes, has 3 sidekicks prior to Tom Holland actually being Spider-Man, but apparently no one knows it. And then you've got the other issue in that Madam Web is Uncle Ben's best friend, which means that Peter Parker would know Madam Web. Like, what? Did their writing department not take a look at this and go, oh, well, this could create a few plot holes here? Like, they're not even holes, they're gaping chasms between what's happened in the Tom Holland films and what would plausibly be known by New York, the papers, or even just Peter Parker, and basically what's gone on in this film. It makes 0 sense. Absolutely 0 sense. And the other thing is as well, is like, you've got Uncle Ben now at an age where we find out he's only just meeting his partner, and it's now because it's been moved from 1993 to 2003, that doesn't really give a great deal of time for him to die before Peter Parker, because Peter Parker obviously is raised by his aunt for a significant period because Uncle Ben dies, but doesn't give a great deal of time for him to die now, and for them to have a plausible relationship where they basically take over the guardianship of Peter Parker. So, yeah, personally, I think, like, the film has so many issues that it's genuinely frightening.
Yeah, I think if I could go back, and I would say this movie is homeless. Would be my one word
Yeah,
answer, because they've obviously tried to link it to the MCU, but unfortunately the timeline does not fit. But again, I don't think you can really do prequels with the MCU because it screws everything up. It's like if you introduce a superhero in the past, it's like, well, no, why was
case in
this
point,
person mentioned?
Cap- Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Like Captain Marvel was a prequel, and then the question that everyone asked, well, Thanos is pretty much the worst person in the universe, and is obviously trying to snap half of people from existence, and he's invading Earth. Where's Captain Marvel during the siege of New York? And obviously they try to write it off with like, well, you're not the only planet that needs saving. Yeah, but currently, A, it's your like home planet, and B, it's literally like the planet that Thanos is attacking in order to get one of the Infinity Stones.
So as I was saying, homeless. It doesn't really fit with the MCU, even though they were trying to attach it to it to ride the coattails to hopefully garner fan support. And obviously they didn't make it its own little thing, but we know for a while that Sony really wants to get an Spider-Man universe off the ground. And to be honest, they actually could have used Madam Web to kickstart that. In all honesty, instead of always trying to start it with a Peter Parker film, Spider-Man, they could have actually started it with Madam Web, and then they could have started it in any time zone, any timeline, anywhere they wanted. But I think their drawback, their hands were too tied when they tried to attach things to the MCU, because also the MCU might just end up saying like, no, that film doesn't belong to our universe. Like it doesn't mean anything to us. So I think yeah, it just feels like it doesn't have its place within its own area. It's literally just a movie that's trying to attach itself to something but can't attach itself there because it, as Bane has spent the last 10 minutes summing up, it doesn't fit the timeline.
And then their whole attempt of making it fit the timeline as a prequel basically causes significant issues on the timeline that they're trying to attach it to.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
It,
personally had a problem with the final fight scene over I guess it was a firework factory of some kind
yeah.
or a storage facility. Um, because two things. They made the villain unbelievably dumb. He finally gets a hold of one of the people he's trying to kill. He just tosses her away. Doesn't even kill her, just tosses her away. Madam Web finally uses her astral projection thing where she uses it to save the three teenagers all at once. Eventually, he punches Madam Web and it sucks all of the projections back into her body. But he gave her quite a bit of time to figure out that power and implement it and save the girls. He could have interfered with that immediately, stopped that from happening. Secondly, when she has her vision about the S falling and cutting the platform in two and then it collapsing, like when she's crawling backwards and he's slowly chasing her, like he has super speed and super strength. He should be able to catch her and kill her instantly. Secondly, she looks at the S so much. If I'm a person following somebody and they keep glancing at something off to the side frequently, I'm going to be like, okay, something's going to happen. And he can't be oblivious, at least completely oblivious, to this seeing the future thing, considering he's been plagued with an image of his death ever since he stole the spider in the first place. So he must know that there is some sort of ability within the spider venom that could be unlocked. And if I'm correct in remembering, the tribe in the Amazon, the the mythology around them also said that they had a similar ability to what Madam Web has. So again, I understand the villain has to lose, but can they not lose in a convincing way where they're not just a complete moron?
Do you know, you said something there which I think is probably the biggest issue with the way that film ends. It's that the guy has super strength. And you said that. He's got super strength. And how many times he grabs every single one of them. Now, if you remember the train scene, he grabs them and smashes them into things and basically snaps their necks and backs in one strike. Each one. Dinah, when she sees him there, he snaps one of their necks on a chair. One of the booths. So when he grabs them on the rooftop, why doesn't he just kill them in one strike? Why does he just toss them casually out of the way? He just kill them. He's there to kill them. He doesn't care about her. As far as his entire motivation for this entire film is to kill those three girls. And he has each one of the three literally in his hand. And he doesn't just snap the neck.
Exactly. And he seems to be incapable of figuring out that Madam Web doesn't have any offensive capabilities. She's purely a support person. And I'm sure in the subways, just while it's on my mind, the subway, the train, whatever it is, where they get off and then he starts taking out the police officers.
Yeah.
Why is he bothering with the police officers? He could just kill the three girls in that instant, because I'm pretty sure he actually just grabs a hold of one of the cops and then just twists its neck and breaks it instantly.
Yeah. Which is exactly what he would have done at the end if he'd have grabbed them. But he also seems to be singling out the police in that scene. And while the women are like going, and then moving forward up and through the stairs. If you can sweep in through the side that quick, you just sweep one of them away, kill them, throw them on the tracks, and then rinse and repeat, and then disappear.
And to be honest, I think it would have added something to the story if one of them had died. Because clearly, Madam Web, I don't know her normal name, but Madam Web is clearly uncomfortable with taking care of these teenagers until she has her trip to Peru, and then she's suddenly like, I will save everybody. That's fine. But I think instead of the whole thing in Peru, it could have been better if she actually loses one of them and then realizes that actually they do need her help. And if she doesn't help, then it's likely that the other two will die as well.
I'd go a step further than what you've said there. I would say it would have been a better film if all three of them had died. And then he came for her because A, she knew who he was, and B, he knew that she had powers that could basically mess with him. And then she ends up killing. And then you would have protected the entire timeline.
True. That is very true.
And you would have had a character arc. Because she would have developed as these were getting picked off throughout the film. Because I don't mean kill them all at once, but I mean like kill one of them in each confrontation.
Yeah, because it also, again, she never seems to truly want to develop her powers throughout this. She just keeps saying, I don't know how they work, I don't know how they work, but she never actually tries to figure it out. And then suddenly, don't even get me started on the thing in Peru. Literally, she goes there, drops into a pool, has a couple of visions, and then boom, she suddenly knows how to use all of her powers. And I'm like, why do we never see proper growth with some of these superheroes where it's like, no, you don't just go from knowing nothing to everything. It's like you have to take your time to understand what these powers are capable of. And I understand in a fight that sometimes instinct takes over, and that's when you can use abilities that you've never used before. Again, that shows growth. But the fact that you just suddenly know how to use everything within your arsenal, it's like it's not really that realistic considering you've spent the first 2/3 of the movie kind of just ignoring your powers and not even really embracing them or even believing that they're a real thing. again, as Bane has pointed out, the pacing just didn't seem right. There was no like her testing out her powers or anything like that. It was literally just, I don't know how they work. Boom. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now I can project myself and save 3 girls at once. Yeah. Whereas, like, if we go back to Spider-Man 1 with Tobey Maguire, we see him testing out different things. Like when he's using his webs for the first time, he actually ends up swinging into a billboard. When he's sticking to things, he actually ends up with newspapers and that stuck to his hands because he doesn't know how to control the abilities. When he's climbing up walls and everything, like, oh, that was a funny thing in the movie. I did like it when she
You
tried
thought
to
it was
climb the
funny.
wall.
I
I
cringed.
No, I did have a little chuckle, and so did the other few people in my theater. We did have a little chuckle at that.
I thought that was like this is just going to be so sad. Like as soon as she went into the corner, I was like, oh Christ, she's going to try to climb the wall and it's not going to work.
But again, off topic there, sorry, little tangent. But I feel as if we're not seeing any true growth with these superheroes anymore. It's literally just 1 minute they can do nothing with their powers, and then suddenly they can do everything with it. And when the powers were initially taking place and happening to her, it all just felt very random. Like at no point did she ever try to control the power itself. And I thought the best time to actually to show her trying to control it was when when her boss got killed in the side swipe with the lorry. Like surely that should have been the time that she's literally just seen a potential future where her boss and friend dies. Surely she should have been a bit more. Oh, let's try and get a bit more information about this. Let's try and see a clearer picture and not just my friend dead and me giving him CPR. Maybe we should try and see if we can see a bit more of the timeline. Like, when does this happen? How does it happen? It all just, like I said, it feels as if, as
Do you
Ben
know
has
what?
said a couple of times, it just feels rushed, and then we get a lot of boring exposition nonsense that we don't need, and then we got to rush through it again.
I'm going to leave you right. This is my final plot point with regards to like stupidity. So she doesn't have the ability to basically see forward in time, or but she believes she can't change time at that point. But she's seeing these snippets of things which are going to happen. So with him, she sees him dead, basically, and her doing the CPR. And she tries to intervene to stop him from ending in the crash. If she hadn't have tried to intervene, he wouldn't have crashed.
Mm.
She held him back by about 15 seconds, which would have been long enough for him to make that turn on the corner and not get sideswiped by the bin wagon. So, if even from the point where, like, it's like there's nothing that could have been done or anything like that, she caused that. She actually caused his death. So she was seeing a death that she was going to cause before she actually caused it. So, in theory, if she's seeing things which are going to happen, then she shouldn't have seen his death. And that entire part of the story makes no sense.
That's fair. My final thoughts will be this movie is a homeless, boring mess.
I'd say dumpster fire. Absolute dumpster fire. I personally, if I wasn't reviewing it, I wouldn't have gone to see it. I probably wouldn't have looked it up when it was eventually released. And I probably wouldn't even have watched it when it was on TV. Now that I've seen it and paid to see it, I wouldn't recommend that a single soul goes to see it. That's my opinion. It's utterly shit. And there's no, as far as I'm concerned, there's really no redeeming feature.
No. Watch Spider-Man 1 with Tobey Maguire.
I'd go as far as to say watch any Spider-Man, including Spider-Man 3, which is probably a hot take, but you will have a better enjoyment of your time than watching this pile of shit. And with that, we'll leave it there. So if you've enjoyed the stream, please press the subscribe, the like to see more of our content. Next week, do we have an inclination on what we're doing next week yet?
No, but on Friday we'll be doing Halo Episode 3.
Yep. Which I'm hoping is going to start to improve. But what we'll do is we'll catch you around on Friday.